can't see. Can you jack the lights up even more? Like, as if the place is open. Hi.
Hi, my name is Lincoln Williams from themovieclub.net.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks. You're welcome to Australia.
Thank you so much, man. It's been really fucking cool. Like, we got here, well, I mean, I got to Sydney yesterday, and instantly I took a shower, and then they're like, you gotta go to New Zealand. So I went to New Zealand. I'd never been there before. That was nice. And then I got up in the morning, and suddenly I was back in Sydney. And then just when I was coming in, they're like, we're leaving tomorrow to go to Brisbane, like at 10 in the morning. So I'm like, so I will have been at the Sydney airport 3 times in 2 days. I can tell you where the coffee's at. Like, I'm real. But I've been here. This is my 4th trip to Australia in general. I was thinking about it just on the way on the ride here. First time I came was for Clerks 2. Popcorn Taxi brought me out, and we did 2 shows. That was awesome. Then I came back for the Graphic Festival and did a Q&A at the Sydney Opera House a few years ago, which is what I'm doing again at the end of this week or next week, I guess. And then the 3rd time we came back was 2 years ago, where me and Jay did a similar thing, toured around, when the Avengers first came out. So we realized that we're gonna time our Australian tour to the Avengers movie each time. So for Infinity Gauntlet, we're coming twice in 1 year. Anyway, you didn't even ask that, man. I'm killing time. Go ahead.
I'll just start with saying that I've loved all your movies, I've grown up with them, and I guess I'm one of the fans who had a bit of a difficult transition getting into your podcast. So my good friend James Geddes got me into your podcast. I've gone up to dates, and so I went from obviously a director who communicated through film, and obviously a person who communicated about everything through podcasting. And through that time, I sort of just noticed how your ribbing of Ben Affleck, it seemed very good-natured, and then over
That's a motherfucker from the outback, like, hurry up, I'm paid.
I guess leading up to it, I saw some good-natured ribbing. I'm just wondering if it all just sort of came down to basically maybe a bit of a rift. How much to a percentage of the script of...
This dude's gonna fucking kill you, man. Spit it out, dude. Here we go.
How much of Good Will Hunting did you write?
Holy shit. I've never told anyone this before, man.
That's what I'm asking.
Right on. Nobody's ever fucking asked. So they asked back in the day. That's how I met my wife, man. They sent me to interview with this woman from USA Today, because USA Today was sniffing around a story that was out at the time that, what's his name? William Goldman, the guy that wrote, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that he had script doctored the film, and then there was a lesser rumor that I had a hand in writing the script. So they were like, Bill Goldman doesn't work at Miramax, but you do. Why don't you go out, talk to this person at USA Today? I was doing press for the Clerks comic book at the time. They're like, you sit down with this person and tell her that you fucking had nothing to do with it, that you just brought the script into us, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay. And that interview was where I met my wife. Like, I thought there was gonna be a big woman from USA Today coming, because I'd met all the journalists from USA Today, and they all looked like my mom. They were all older and matronly, in a nice way, but still, I was like, right on, there's gonna be a lady coming here who looks like my mom, and I'm gonna say dirty words, she's gonna write them down. And I was in Los Angeles, and we were rehearsing with Chris Rock for Dogma. We weren't, he was at shooting Lethal Weapon 3 or 4, one of the Lethal Weapons. And Joel Silver, the producer, wouldn't let him come to Pittsburgh where we were doing Dogma. He was supposed to be done shooting, but they went over and shit, and Scott Mosier called up Joel Silver, he's a big producer in Hollywood. He was like, hey, we were supposed to have Chris 2 days ago. Is there any chance he's gonna come this week? And Joel Silver was like, go fuck yourself, you'll have him when I'm done. He hung up on Scott. And Scott was real scared, and he told me, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll go to Los Angeles and rehearse with Chris. So I went to Los Angeles to rehearse with Rock. And we rehearsed in my hotel room for like 2 hours, and then we sat around chit-chatting, because we barely knew each other at this point. And then he was like, what are you gonna do when you're here in Los Angeles? I said, just this, I'm pretty much just doing this. And then I got to do an interview for USA Today. And he goes, all old ladies work at that newspaper. I was like, I know. So he goes, all right, I'll see you later. And he leaves. And then about 20 minutes later, knock on the door. And I opened the door, and there was this gorgeous fucking woman, young, like 25 years old, standing there, looked hot as fuck, way out of my league. And this is the first thought that I had about the woman who would eventually become my wife. I looked at her and I was like, oh my God, Chris Rock sent a hooker to my room. This has never happened. Ben and Matt never sent me a hooker. Like, finally I had to work with a quality actor and shit. So I was like, hi, you know, and she was like, hi, I'm Jennifer Schwalbach, I'm with USA Today. And so it broke my brain because she didn't look like a USA Today person at all, and I was looking behind her for her mother or something like that. And I was like, come on in. And so we sat down and did the interview and stuff, and we talked about the comic book mostly, but then her agenda came in, and she was like, so, a lot of people are saying that the boys didn't write Good Will Hunting. And I was like, really? Who's saying that? And they're like, some people, they're whispers. They're saying Bill Goldman might have done a draft. And I was like, no, it would have been amazing if Bill Goldman did a draft. But he met with the boys, sat down and met with them when the movie was at Castle Rock. Bill Goldman, legendary screenwriter, you know, script doctor, he's hired in the business. They give him like $200,000 to come in, look at a script, and be like, yeah, it's good enough. Or to put his magic on it, they'll charge a lot more. So, you know, he was an absolute legend and shit. So the boys sat down with him when the movie was at Castle Rock before it went to Miramax. And Ben told me about that meeting. He was just, I said, well, how'd it go, man? He goes, the guy said, look, I like your script. They're trying to tell me to tell you to put an NSA subplot in it. You know, when it was at Castle Rock, they wanted to jam in this weird subplot about how the government wanted Will to work for them, and so they're like, we're gonna hunt you down, Will Hunting, and seriously. And so, you know, the boys were like, they don't get it. This movie's not that. This movie's about how this guy, even though he's fucking brilliant, his friends just treat him like he's one of them and shit like that. He's a normal guy, but he's a bit abnormal because of his education, and it's about the friendship and blah, blah, blah. So that, you know, Ben and Matt are sitting down with Bill Goldman, and he's like, they want me to tell you the stuff in the NSA thing, but I say no, I think this movie's really nice, and it's about friendship, and why would you throw in this ridiculous subplot? So they met him for an hour, and they just bullshitted about movies, and then he left, and that was that. So, you know, I knew for a fact he didn't write anything in the script. And she goes, well, there's a lesser rumor that says that, you know, you wrote some of it. And there's no way in any fucking year that anyone, you know, that would say, hey, the guy that made Tusk wrote Good Will Hunting. But I was just coming off of Chasing Amy, and people were like, oh, he's grown up and shit. Like, there was a moment where people thought my career was going to go in an adult way, and I took it in a whole fucking different direction. So, you know, they were like, oh my God, he wrote that, and people like that, so maybe he did have a hand in this movie. But, so, you know, I told her, no, absolutely, I had nothing to do with that. I said, my only interaction with that script, or as much as my involvement was, Ben sent me that script, because we were talking about it. He was just like, I got this movie at Castle Rock. When I first fucking met the guy, he had just sold the script to Castle Rock when he came in for the Mallrats audition. And that was one of the first things I ever talked about with Ben Affleck was his Good Will Hunting script deal. Because I just read about it in the trades, Variety. And so he came in to audition, and Jim Jacks, who's the producer of Mallrats, wonderful guy, he had worked with Ben on Dazed and Confused, because he'd also produced Richard Linklater's movie Dazed and Confused. So Ben was coming in to audition for Mallrats. We're sitting there with Don Phillips, the casting guy, and I was like, who's coming in today? And he's reading me a list, and he goes, and then Ben Affleck. And Jim Jacks goes, oh. I said, what's that? He goes, I don't like that boy. I said, why? He goes, he's got a potty mouth. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I'm good. I'm Dazed and Confused. He was just always adding fuck, fuck, fuck. He kept saying fuck a lot. He goes, he comes from kids' television, this Ben Affleck, and now that he's in movies, all he wants to do is say fuck. And I was like, well, then I want to work with him, because that's all I'm interested in doing as well. So Ben came in, and I just read about him in the trades. He had, so him and Matt, who I didn't know that guy either, but I knew he'd been in a movie. I'd seen him in like Mystic Pizza or something like that. They had written the script and sold it to Castle Rock for $800,000. So he comes into audition, and you know, they're like, this is Ben Affleck. I said, hey man, congrats, I saw you in the trades, dude. I was selling the script. He's like, you read that? I was like, yeah, I fucking read the trades all the time. You made $800,000, what the fuck you doing auditioning for this piece of shit? And he goes, wow, I feel confident now. You know? And he goes, I don't know, he's going, it's just a movie, like we had no idea. Our agent was able to sell it. It was kind of cool. I was like, what's it like making movies with Castle Rock? He goes, I don't know, yet so far, I don't know, we're in the happy stage, and hopefully we find a director and shit like that. And I liked him, he was a good guy, and so we got along. And then after he left, I told Jim Jacks, I was like, I think that's our guy, man. We can have him play the big dude, Shannon Hamilton, the guy that likes to fucking uncomfortable places. And it fucking, you know, Jim Jacks was like, he has that look. Jacks fucking, oh my God, Jax. He eventually turned and fell in love with Ben, but for the first like week of production, anytime we shot something with Ben, Jax would come over to me and be like, did you hear him? He said fuck unnecessarily. Potty mouth. They eventually fucking fell in love with him in a big bad way. Everybody did. I remember we were making fucking Chasing Amy. Like, we went off, we made Mallrats with Jim, and then when the movie was done, we went off, made Chasing Amy. Mallrats came out, just died. So I went off and kind of recalibrated, and that's where Chasing Amy comes from. But before we, made the movie, before we showed anybody the movie, we'd shot it, I hadn't cut it yet. Took all the raw footage to show Jim Jax, because he brought us all together, man. He'd introduced me to Joey, to Ben, Jason Lee, and I put all of them in Chasing Amy. I looked at Mallrats as like a $5 million casting call for Chasing Amy. So I showed him all the raw footage, and one of the first fucking things he said was like, God damn it, who knew Affleck could act? He's good, he's a leading man. And I was like, yeah, man, he's grown up, he's not potty mouth anymore. He said, well, he's still cursing, but still, he's pretty good. He slowly fell in love with him. Jax was the dude that was the linchpin, man, who was kind of responsible for the whole thing, for Mallrats, because I'm a guy that's just like, hey, I got a goofy idea. And then like you fucking say it to somebody of use. That's what you need in life. You need to surround yourself with useful people. I call them why not people, man. Because there's a lot of why in the world. If you ever step outside your box and go, I want to do something, and I'm not really known to do, but fuck, it calls to me, man. And if you're all here, there's a reason for that. It's because what I do calls to you, whether it's in movies or here or something like that. You see it, there's something about it that you like. It's not just, hey, that's enjoyable, but something that you're like, I would like to do that, man. It doesn't seem that difficult. You stand there and talk about your life, or you make movies about your life. You're drawn to that sort of thing. I get it. That's how I got here, man. I saw Richard Linklater's Slacker, and I was drawn to it. Don't know why. It wasn't about me in any stretch of the imagination, but this guy in what I thought was bumblefuck Texas, Nowheresville, Texas, made his own movie and shit. He wasn't in New York or Los Angeles, he was in Texas, and he made this fucking story, this elegy to art and stuff, and I was like, fuck, man, this guy's from Nowheresville. He made this movie fucking in the middle of Texas, and it's about the shit he wants to talk about. If he can do that, maybe I can fucking do something like that. I never once thought about making a movie in my life until I saw Richard Linklater's Slacker, and I was like, fuck, I want to do that. And then it's an urge that sticks in all of us from when we're children. When we're kids, we like to look at things and draw what we see, or imitate that adventure. If you watch a TV show or a movie, you play that game and shit like that. You read a book, you try to act it out and shit like that. That's because art calls to us on a real fucking primal level, man, because it's the ultimate playtime, right? When you're an adult, you don't really play as much. Sex is the ultimate playtime and stuff. But when you're a kid, it's making pretend and shit like that. And I love that kind of thing. That's always kind of like called to me and whatnot. So the idea of somebody like meeting somebody like a Jim Jax